And I'm going to be talking about something once again that's outside of the topics that I usually discuss. And this topic I want to discuss in this video has come up recently a lot for some reason. Perhaps, well, maybe you'll figure it out by the time I get to the end. Now, before I get into the topic of this video, I just want to say that for people who are not into the descriptive conspiracies, they might say, well, yeah, you're making sense. But I can guarantee that by the end of the video, I'd be going, well, no, you're crazy. And the people who are into, again, as a descriptive conspiracies, will say, yeah, you're making sense. And by the end of the video, those people are going to be going, you're crazy. So I know I'm not going to win favor in either camp. So if you're in one of those two camps, prepare to call me crazy, I guess. Now, I just want to segue for a moment here and say that there's a difference between conspiracy theorists and people who look into conspiracies, as some might call a conspiracy analyst. And I've talked about this for over a decade. Just once in a while I'll bring it up. It's December 2024, and I'm going to be talking about something that might have some controversy. Now, initially, as I get into the topic of this video, people who are, for example, as a descriptive into conspiracies will be saying, yeah, I agree with you, and by the end of this video, I'm sure they're going to say that I'm completely wrong. You're going to have people who are, as a descriptive, anti-conspiratorial, again saying, well, yeah, what you're saying makes sense. And by the end of this video, they'll be saying, you're wrong. Now, it's going to segue for a quick moment here. There's a difference between someone who conspires and someone who looks into conspiracies. We have a common, well-known term called conspiracy theorists, and then there are those people who look into conspiracies, as some might call a conspiracy analyst. The difference is a conspiracy theorist is one who creates a theory to conspire, whereas someone looking into conspiracies, for example, a conspiracy analyst, is trying to figure out a potential or actual conspiracy, try to figure out what's going on. Anyway, with that stage set, what I'm going to be talking about is alleged weather modification. Now, before people start clicking off, just hear me out. It's a challenge. By the end of this video, there'll be a challenge to actually both sides, those who think that it's real and those who think that it's not real. Anyway, so a lot of people make claims, for example, that they have patents on weather modification, human intervention on weather, human beings controlling weather, call it whatever you want. And they think they have these patents, as if the people who have this alleged technology would just let these patents leak out. I've said for a long time, there are many flavors of Kool-Aid, even within each group. So you really have to wonder about these alleged patents. Now, I'm going to be challenging all this, so it's best just to hear me out. The whole theory on how weather works is just a theory. In fact, an unproven theory. And for example, one of the theories is that dust particles come up from the ground and rise up 10, 20, 30,000 feet to the height of clouds and linger up there. So it's really, really dusty up there. So when planes are flying through, they get really dusty. And these little dust particles collect moisture, the moisture turns into clouds and falls as rain. Show me evidence of that actually happening. That dust particles will rise from the ground with the winds, supposedly, into thinner and thinner densities of air to the point where there's very little air up there, but yet they're still floating around. Now, here's where the real challenge is. Along with that theory, they would have people accept that water vapor leaves the ground or a large body of water and rises 10, 20, 30,000 feet to the height of clouds and attaches to these little dust particles or whatever, and eventually falls back to the ground as rain. Show me an example where water vapor from the ground or a large body of water rises higher than fog. We have to see an example of that in nature. Now, I'm going to pause here for a moment. People have tried to replicate this in laboratories and as a descriptive little test tubes and saying, look at, we've accomplished something. It's not on a grand scale, for one thing, and I would even challenge that, for example, but I digress. So this water vapor rises up to the height of where we see clouds, going through thinner and thinner, as well as colder and colder, different layers of density. And this is what people think how the weather works. We need to see an example of that in real life, but we don't. And as the water vapor is rising up, keep in mind, these little alleged dust particles are rising up as well. Why aren't clouds forming 50 feet above the ground, 100 feet, 200 feet, only at the height of where clouds are? Now, I'm sure there are going to be some people trying to use logical fallacies and just make stuff up to justify it all. But if you really think about it, the whole theory of how the weather actually works is still just a theory. And this ties into with the alleged humans controlling weather. Because those so-called patents and the Kool-Aid that's been given about humans controlling the weather is based on all these theories. We hear, for example, people talking about cloud seeding. Oh, and they've done this in Vietnam, and there's all these patents and everything else. Well, there's no doubt that something's being dropped from the sky. We just have to look at chemtrails, which are different to contrails, and can't see the difference. If you're one of those people, then, well, I don't know what more I can say to that. These are just all theories of cloud seeding. People will talk about HAARP. Oh, look at HAARP, microwaves, creating clouds and stuff like that. Nobody knows what's really going on. And CERN is another thing, which apparently CERN does a lot of different things, from opening up alleged portals to controlling the weather and all sorts of craziness, depending on who you talk to, what people want to accept. But it seems like to be a machine that has never accomplished what it allegedly attempted to accomplish. For example, finding the God particle. But it does all these other things secretly, but so secretly that everyone knows about it. In the truth or freedom types and so forth, they all know about it. The mainstream types, they don't know about it. They hear about it, they think it's stupid. But anyway, these are just all different flavors of Kool-Aid. So in order for humans to control the weather, they would have to actually know what controls the weather. How do clouds form? Where does that water vapor come from? And then this is going to segue, or could segue, I'm not going to do it in this video, into another topic of where this water vapor that creates clouds or whatever it is coming from. But again, that's a completely different tangent. Perhaps someday maybe I'll even talk about it. I don't know. But I'll give you a little hint. There are some people who do talk about this tangent, and I'll just leave it at that. So why would people in the know, the elites, the elitist types and so forth, make up all these stories? Well, perhaps to hide something that is in plain sight, somewhat. Perhaps to hide, and this is going to trigger some people, the Most High. And for those who do follow a religion or belief system, in many holy books, it does talk about, for example, in the last days, how there'll be miracles in the sky, and the weather will be changing, and where there were oceans, there'll be mountains, and where there's mountains, there'll be oceans. All these things done by the Most High. You don't have to accept any of that, what I just said. But we do see evidence of something happening throughout our history, a pattern, 100-year pattern, for example. And there's plenty of evidence of that. And I'm just going to stop here for a moment, along with what I just said, with where there were mountains, there'll be oceans, and where there's oceans, there'll be mountains, and so forth. A lot of people will use the fact that they find seashells in rock formations on top of mountains, saying, yeah, there was a great flood. Would have to be a flood that lasted quite a long time for these things to form and be stuck there. But they forget how even in their belief systems and religions they talk about the earth changing in itself. Again, all these things being done by the Most High. But hey, you know, that's just what, crazy talk? Whatever. So whether you are part of a religion, belief system, you're an atheist, whatever, the real focus here is, can human beings control the weather? And if you cannot provide examples, evidence in real life, in the real world, of the challenges that I gave in this video, and you still say, yep, human beings can do it, then enjoy your flavor of Kool-Aid. Anyway, my intention is not to take anyone off, but just to give things to think about. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.
There's truth and there's untruth. But if you stick to the truth, even against the whole world, you're still not mad.
Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people saying to me, oh, when is it going to get easier? When you die.